If you were to ask Korean American students to talk to their parents or their grandparents about the Korean War, I bet there would be a story that's there. And that's because the impact was so great for not just Koreans in Korea, but also Korean Americans as well.
It's that the Korean people, Korean Americans, and also people in Korea, it's so much more dynamic than I thought it was before.
Hello, this is Dr. Jeff, and we're out here at UCLA today. I'm really excited about a Korean American workshop that's going to be happening today, really focusing in on the Korean War. Once again, that happened between 1950 to 1953. Many Korean Americans today, and definitely folks in Korea, they will remember this time as a very painful moment in our history. What do Americans need to know about the Korean War? And so as we think about Korea from 1953 on to today, 2023, we have seen a great explosion of economic growth. It's one of the top 10 GDP countries in the world. And in addition to that, one of the great democracies of the world. How did that happen post 1953? It's a great story to be well understood, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more today. If you were to ask Korean American students to talk to their parents or their grandparents about the Korean War, I bet there would be a story that's there. And that's because the impact was so great for not just Koreans in Korea, but also Korean Americans as well. I think that could be a possible idea in the ethnography story, asking students to ask their parents about maybe their connection or experience with the Korean War or their grandparents. And I bet there's a story there that they might never have heard, a story of resilience once again. Once again, I have to think about how to do this sensitively because in this war, 3.5 million Koreans had perished, about 70% of them civilians. And families were divided and still are divided between a North and a South. Because in the very beginning, there was not a North and a South. There was one Korea for 4,000 years. So this division is something that's relatively new. And so today's session with Dr. Nami Lee was so powerful because she kind of alluded to like why the Korean War started and why it ended and why the US was involved, and a little bit about the state of North and South Korea today, both for Koreans in Korea as well as Korean Americans in the United States. So in the second session, we learned a little bit about some of the roots of the Korean War. Oftentimes we think of the Korean War as beginning between 1950 and then concluding in 1953. But were there perhaps some roots to why the Korean War began in 1950? Some say it even started, or the roots of it started in 1945. When you think about Korea, there is a North and a South, North Korea and a South Korea, and that's what happened after the war. And so, was there a peace agreement? Currently in place, there's the armistice. It's not necessarily a peace, and that's been the case for about 70 years now. Even in the United States, there's a resolution that's being considered, House HR 1369, Peace on the Korean Peninsula Act. And I guess we were ideating a little bit about the idea of why peace versus armistice. And I thought this quote was so powerful, the idea how peace can activate the full potential of what a country could look like with peace and of human imagination. There are three books that she brought to the table: Crane, Father's Keeper, and Tastes Like War. And in our first course, Korean American Studies, is actually Korean American Studies Experiences and Stories. And so these pieces of literature are drawing out stories of what was happening during the Korean War, which can then give imagination to the students as they reflect about their own lives and their parents' lives as well. She even referred to a phrase called haunting, like they know something happened, but they don't know exactly what had happened during that time period. So this made me think about our course, our Korean American Studies course, and that civic action component. While some might volunteer in organizations and serve the community, I wonder if some of our students might want to be authors. They'll read these books, be inspired by them, and they themselves, after having many different modules in learning about different Korean American stories of resilience, want to be authors and create short stories of their own. And might that be a kind of civic action for this course as well? So for you authors out there, poets, artists, filmmakers, maybe this is going to be a space for you to use some of that artisan skill within you to create something for the next generation. I'm currently writing my own Seicho poem. It's asking what is the topic, and then you start writing Seicho lines. A traditional pattern is 9 syllables followed by 5 syllables, but there's some room for flexibility. So it's like 9 syllables, a pause,
Okay, so if you're not
and then
with us,
5 syllables, sometimes more. A total of 14 to 16 syllables. Storm clouds hang dark and low, ready to gush forth with force. The winds blow across the reeds. The whistle sounds like a train. I brace for the roaring downpour, but find myself cleansed and refreshed. I'm here with the great Dr. Grace Cho. I mean, I don't think we'd be doing Korean American Studies if it wasn't for her collaboration and her invitation to work very early on in 2020 on the 7 webinar series, the 7 series on the Model Ethnic Studies curriculum. Can you share a little bit about that, Dr. Grace Cho?
Oh, actually, we have to maybe go back
okay.
and begin with how we started all this. Actually, there was some model curriculum in the state, and our Korean one was not chosen one. So we did some petition, and we collected 5,000 petitions from public, and we were able to. So they selected. They wanted Korean one, but the model curriculum that was selected was more just one lesson. So we, which was expert from the field, but it's more geared for ethnic studies majors than the teachers. So we tried to include some supplementary materials, make it teacher friendly, so teachers can easily use these materials to do it.
Sure.
And out of those 8 lessons, we introduced that within the 7 weeks, right? Seminar we had.
Sure.
And he was involved in that.
Yes,
too,
I was so glad to be involved because that gave me some background information to actually implement. And so I tried many of those lessons in my regular world history classes because even though we have our Korean American Studies class, all these lessons can be implemented in English or history or other classes as well, maybe 1, 2, or 3, and I tried them out. And I was like, wow, I could really see many of these lessons being used for the Korean American Studies course because those lessons are not just great for Korean Americans, but all Americans.
Yes, and it's not just the history; it can be used in any different subjects.
That's right. In order for the tree to grow tall, you have to have deep roots. And one of the deep roots is the Korean American story, and these Korean American stories, of course, intersect with many American stories, which helps us to understand our American stories of resilience. Thank you so much for
Actually, I learned it through this process too, that we have been here that long.
You know, we're still learning, right?
Yes, we are
Even
all
though we're
learning.
writing, we're still learning. Even though we're presenting, we're still learning.
Yes.
So in Anaheim Union High School District, we have the Korean American Studies class. In Anaheim Elementary, they're launching a lot of different really cool lessons. What are some thoughts that you have in Anaheim Elementary?
So we are planning to launch some Korean American Studies. So far we are working on 3 lessons on 3 different
3 lessons. Wow.
Amazing Korean American.
Can you give us a clue on which 3 lessons we're talking about?
We are working on 도산한
Oh,
창어
Dosanan Chango, that's a big one.
and Sammy Lee,
Dr. Sammy Lee.
Dr. Sammy Lee, and
Was it Colonel Young-ho Kim?
Colonel
Very good.
Young-ho Kim as well. So I learned a lot. I'm very excited for our students to learn about our amazing Korean Americans.
And I believe there's a dual language immersion program at your site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
What can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So our students in ASD, they're learning, starting from 80-20 language model, and our students are learning linguistic contents and learning about different cultures, Korean cultures. Yeah, and they're flourishing and they're working very hard.
It's wonderful to have the partnership of ASD. I believe I met with Laura, your curriculum specialist, and Dr. Sandra. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's the principal at Jefferson.
That's right. That's right. So very excited, and who knows what kind of future collaborations there could be. So we have our high school students that are being trained and equipped to know and tell their stories. So perhaps in the future, as we connect with AESD, there could be some possible opportunities.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jeff, we really admire your work and how what you are doing. That's amazing.
And we admire what you guys are doing at the elementary, and I'm glad we can vertically team like this, K12, and create an amazing story, not only for Anaheim, but for the entire country. So a day like this is really great because even though I might be familiar with some of these events related to the Korean War, Korean American history, it's like I was looking at a blank coloring book, but then you come to a place like this and they get real close in, you start seeing the details, you start seeing the colors filling in, and the picture starts looking a little bit different, whether it's for my own understanding or how I might teach others. So really glad to be out here today at UCLA and being a part of this workshop.